People are forever asking me to read their plays, help them write their plays, criticize their plays, teach them playwriting. Okay? None of the above can really be done, but I'm going to do it. So listen carefully, because this is the only time I'm ever going to do it. I'm going to teach you the whole art of playwriting, and then you never have to talk about it again, ever. A playwright has a fantasy and writes it down so that other artists may recreate it, so that an audience may experience it. That's it. Pack up, go home, you're done. You're playwrights. That's all there is to do, all there ever has been to do, all there ever will be to do. Those 4 steps are the entire art of playwriting. You may do some of them more than once. You may do them in a different order. You may try to omit one of them, but there is nothing more for you to do, right? A playwright, that's you, has a fantasy, that is, imagines a story. Now, you may think your fantasy isn't a fantasy. You may think it's history or a chronicle or factual or a biography. But the fact is that whether you call it the life of Richard the Lionhearted or Harriet Tubman or Amy Semple McPherson, all you will ever actually be able to write is your fantasy of those people. You may think you are writing about the royal family of England. In fact, you are writing your fantasy of the royal family of England. It probably is a whole lot more about how awful your family is or how nice you wish they were. But that doesn't matter. You really don't have to think about it. You only have to have a fantasy that interests you enough for you to imagine it from start to finish in detail. And why in detail? Because part 2 is writes it down. This is the easy part. This is the easiest part of playwriting. If you actually have a clear and coherent fantasy, all you do when you sit down to write is write down what he says and she says and he says and she says and who comes in and who goes out and what scenery is shoved on and what lights, music, or sound or props there are. That's all. You just write it down. But to try to do that without having a coherent fantasy in your head would be like trying to paint a still life without any apples in front of you. You know, just vaguely daubing at the canvas, hoping it comes out looking like a still life. It doesn't work. Okay? So you do that. You write it down. And 3, so that other artists may recreate it. Recreate what? It. That original fantasy that you had, that you wrote down. This means that the words have to be clear enough and easily enough spoken that actors can actually say them. The physical needs of the production must be realistic in terms of whatever financial level you're writing for. That's the sets, the props, the costumes, the music, and all of that, special effects. And all of this is done, why? For, so an audience may experience it. And what is the it? That original fantasy you had, which you wrote down and then arranged so that actors and carpenters and directors and musicians could do it. Okay? The only purpose of your showing your work to other people is to make them experience the fantasy you experienced originally and to have the same feelings about it, same reactions to it that you did. So all you need is for someone, anyone, to listen to your work, not to give you advice. How can they possibly give you advice on your fantasy? But to see if they laugh or cry or gasp at the right places. If they don't, then you look first at your work, say, okay, they didn't laugh there. I laugh at that point. Why don't they laugh? Oh, it's because I like Yiddish dialect. Maybe the rest of the world doesn't feel about Yiddish dialect that I do, so I better make sure that that line is funny even to someone who doesn't like Yiddish dialect. Okay? And you keep doing that until every line does what it's supposed to do. Or you say, well, they were shifting around in their seats on page 4. They're not supposed to shift around in their seats there. So you look at page 4 and you say, I see why they're shifting around in their seats. It's because I have a discussion of the Catalan conspiracy there. And I forgot, most people don't even know what the Catalan conspiracy is, much less care about it. So I must either make them as excited about the Catalan conspiracy as I am, or substitute something that more people are excited about there. Now, if you've done all that, and if you can't fault the script, then you look at the people who were trying to realize it, say actors who read it in staged reading. And you say, well, they didn't give the emphasis in the right places. They didn't make it flow. They didn't have the right rhythm. You say, well, I'd better rewrite the script so that it's impossible not to read it at the right pace, with the right flow, and at the right rhythm, because you never know who's going to get cast in it. You must make the script do everything. Every single thing must be in those words on the page. Why? So that other artists may recreate it, so an audience may experience it. Okay? Now, I don't know how to make it any clearer. That's all there is. There is no more. There's no great secret to learn. You just do all that, and you work and work and work until it happens. The worst problem that most people start out with is they are not actually wanting to write a play. They're wanting to have written a play. And to get the rewards they assume they're going to get if they write a play, to be loved, to be liked, to be paid, to be hated. Some people consider that a reward. But you can't do that. You can't think about something as abstract as writing a play. What play? Could you paint a still life or write a symphony? No. You've got to paint that particular still life. You've got to write that particular symphony. You've got to write that particular play. All that should ever be on your mind when writing a play is he says, she says, he says, she says, he says, she says, so-and-so enters, so-and-so exits, so-and-so kills so-and-so, so-and-so kisses so-and-so. That's all that should be on your mind. How to put the words together to make that fantasy happen for actors and then for other people. Now that's all. I repeat, there is no more. There's no more to be said, but I'm going to say it once more anyway. A playwright has a fantasy and writes it down so that other artists may recreate it, so that an audience may experience it. That's it. Good night. That's the whole art of playwriting.